It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video, and today I'm going to talk about FreeScout. Now, FreeScout is touted as the best open source help desk and shared mailbox. As we get into this install, you're going to see that it's really a shared mailbox with some pretty neat capabilities for replying, for sending, for doing some pretty cool stuff and making sure things are assigned to the right people. Really where the power of FreeScout is going to come from is the modules. That's what's going to turn it, in my opinion, more into a help desk type application. Now, this is how they support the open source side of the project, so these do cost a little bit of money. But for instance, right here, if you wanted to add tags to things, $6.99, you can add that module, you've got it, you're set up. Let's say you want to do saved replies, $4.99. What if you want to do workflows, things that are automated through the system? $14.99. Now, this could add up if you said, man, I want all of those things. True, you may want all of these things, but you have the option to start off with the free system that gives you the email capability where you can receive an email to a certain email address. And you can set up more than one of these, by the way. You could have like support@yourdomain.com, help@yourdomain.com, desktop@yourdomain.com, premium support@yourdomain.com, and so on. And really, FreeScout helps sort that out, and then you can assign which users can see which of those lists and which users get assigned any kind of requests that come in through those things. And your users really just work through the browser, so you'll see that when we go through that here in just a minute. But they do have some really, really cool things that you can add to the system through the module setup. But thinking about like what really makes sense for what we could get the most out of might be a really great way to think about how do I add modules to the system that make sense? How do I support the FreeScout project at the same time? So I wanted to go through that real quick before we got into the install. But FreeScout looks really cool. I'm about to show you guys how to set it up, how to get it running on your own domain, and really very straightforward. I hope you'll stick with me. We'll get into it right after this. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers and all of my patrons over at Patreon. Seriously, you guys make this so worth it for me to do these videos every week. I really truly enjoy it, and I just can't say thank you enough. If you're enjoying these videos, subscribe. Let YouTube know that I'm doing a good job by subscribing to the channel. Plus, you'll get notified when I have new videos coming out. And finally, if you're enjoying what I'm doing, give it a like. Just click on that thumbs up. And that way YouTube knows that you like it, and they'll pass it along to other people that might enjoy my content as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you again. Let's get started. And the thing I think you guys like to see is the license. So under GitHub, they've got the GNU Affero General Public License version 3. So this is a pretty standard GNU license. It is an open source license, just to be clear about what we're looking at. Again, they have modules that are add-on modules that you can purchase, but it is an open source system. Now what I've done is I've gone over to their Docker FreeScout page. So if you go to FreeScout and then Docker FreeScout, you can get this page. And actually, if we go back for just a second to the code on this page, you'll see this little examples folder. This is where I went. So if you look down here, they kind of tell you about what this is and how to do things and what things you might want to look at. So it's good information to look at, but we're going to go through this pretty quickly. So they've got this examples page. And then right down here, they've got this Docker Compose with no proxy or Docker Compose, which I assume has a proxy built into it. So depending on how you're running the software and where you're running the software might depend on how you want to do this. But since I'm going to run this from my home server and I run my own proxy inside my network, I'm going to do this with no proxy. So I'm just going to click on that. We're going to see this nice Docker Compose file, and it's really kind of already filled out. So the easiest way to do this is to click on raw right here above your compose files, and then just do a Control-A to select everything, Control-C to copy. And then we're just going to jump over to my test server here in the terminal. And I've already got my Docker folder open. So what I like to do is I like to create a parent level Docker folder, and then inside of that, I put my other folders that I want to run anything with from Docker. So in this case, I'll make a new folder called mkdir, and FreeScout is what we're going to call it. And then we'll cd into FreeScout just like that. And we'll just clear this out to give you a little bit more space. I'll make this just a little bigger for the folks on the mobile devices. And then we're going to do nano, which is a text editor in the terminal. You can use Vi, you can use Vim, you can use any text editor you want. I just use nano because it's built in and it's pretty simple to open up and use. And then we're going to do docker-compose.yml. Now we're just going to paste in that text we copied a while ago from GitHub. And then we're just going to go right back to the top here. In fact, we'll save with Control O and just hit enter to save. And then we'll go to the top just to make sure we don't lose it if anything happens here. We're going to go to the top, and if you look right here, now they've got a little funny space here. So we'll just go out here and just kind of backspace that out and get that extra space out of the way. And we'll just start here at the top. So it's a version 2 compose file. It's going to go and grab the FreeScout application from Tired of It, which is or Tired of IT, I believe, but which is the person that made the FreeScout app here on Docker. They've got some ports maps. Now I don't want to use 80, so I'm going to put 8252, and that's going to forward to port 80 on the container. So anytime you want to change something about a Docker container, you can change the left side. You just don't want to mess with the right side of the colon, but this left side is your host port. So on your host machine, that's the port that's going to be listening in the case of FreeScout. So that one we can change without any issues. As we move down, it's got this FreeScout DB. That's something that it's going to need to be linked to, and that's an image that we're going to look at down below, or a container it's going to create from an image down below. And then they've got some information for you on the volume. So they say if you want to perform customizations to the source code and have access to it, you need to uncomment this line and then comment out this line here. But in this case, I don't want to do that, so I'm going to leave it like it is. But just know that if you want to do that, you need to take out this hashtag here, like this, and then put in a hashtag here. That just changes those lines where you would have that set up. In my case, I'm just going to leave it as it is, so I'm going to go back and re-comment that out, make sure this one's uncommented. And then down here the same way, they say if you want to just keep the original source and add additional modules, uncomment this line. So if you want to add additional modules, uncomment that line. So it's probably a good idea to go ahead and uncomment that line. We may not add modules today, but if you're going to add modules in the future, you might want to go ahead and uncomment it right now. Then it's got the logs set up, and then they've got these environment variables. So this first one is container name, FreeScout app. That's fine. We'll leave that alone. And then we've got FreeScout DB. That's the DB name. That's the database name. That's fine. There's nothing to change there. Now, your DB name is FreeScout. Again, no problem. But the DB user, you don't want to leave this user and password as default. You want to change these. You can leave FreeScout as the user, honestly, but you do want to give it a better password. So in my case, I'm going to change the user and the password. I'm going to change this to Brian. And I'm going to change this to something a little stronger than that. Now, you still should not copy my example here because it's still not a super strong password. At least it's long. It's got upper lowercase numbers, so we're doing pretty good there. If you want to put symbols in, I suggest putting quotation marks around the password if you're going to do that. As we continue down, you've got this thing that says site URL. Now I'm going to take out this blank space again. Site URL. So we're just going to go and backspace this because we don't want this to be freescout.example.com. In this case, I'm going to make it the actual IP address of my server just for testing in the first place. Here you've got this admin email. You can change this to whatever you want. This is going to be kind of your login email. So I'm going to say brian@fixitdelrio.com. And then your admin password is set default as FreeScout. I would suggest changing that again to something long and strong. So we're going to do a long, strong password 123543223. Something like that. That's a nice long password that hopefully nobody would ever guess except you guys watching the video. Of course, this is just for testing, so it's going to be all different later. As we continue on, we've got enable SSL. Right now we're going to say false. We're going to do that with our proxy in a little bit. As we continue, I'll kind of bring this up on the screen to make it a little easier to see. So right here you can see display errors is set to false. We don't want to see errors coming up on the screen. If we're doing any kind of debugging, we'd want to set that to true. Time zone is set to America Vancouver by default, which might be Central Time. I don't remember, so I'm going to go ahead and set that to Chicago because I know that's Central US time for me. And then restart always. The next one is the FreeScout DB. Remember that was mentioned way up here. So that's what it's talking about. It's talking about this container right here. It's going to use the Tired of It MariaDB image. So he's put his own MariaDB image up there. So as we continue down, you've got this container name, FreeScout DB, that's fine. And then the volumes that it's setting up, this is all fine. I like the // I appreciate that he did that because that keeps it in the folder where we're creating this Docker Compose file and it keeps everything in the FreeScout folder. That's what I want. I don't like it when they put things all over the computer. This is to me set up already the way I like it. Now you guys feel free to change those paths to whatever you like on the left side. Don't mess with the right side, but on the left side of the colon, you can change that path to be whatever you want. Environment variables, again, root password. Password is probably a bad root password. So again, you should make this a really long, strong password with numbers and complexity. Something like that, okay? And then on the DB name, FreeScout is fine, but we changed our DB user. Remember that. We need to go here and make it match what we did up above. So I put Brian as my DB user. And then I'm going to get rid of this password right here. And I'm going to just highlight and copy this password down below. Just like that. So I make sure that they match exactly. You don't want to have any mistakes there. And then we've got another space that's just out of place. We've got container name is FreeScout DB. Again, this is just a environment variable that's set. So just make sure it matches what you're actually putting for your container name up here. Same with FreeScout app. Make sure it matches what you're actually putting for your container name. If you change those things, just make sure they match at the various places throughout the file. That's the secret. Restart always. Great. Now he's got a DB backup as well. So we're going to go down here and kind of check out the DB backup. So he says FreeScout DB backup, and right here it's tired of it, DB backup. That's fine. And then he's got these links. It's going to link to the FreeScout DB, which we expect. Now, if you're linking it and you changed the name up here, let's go back up for just a second. If you change this name right here, you need to change the reference up above, and you need to change the reference right here where it has links. Make those match. This right here should match this right here. Make sure that you're making those match, okay? As we go down, volumes, DB backup to DB backup. Again, you can change the left side of the colon, just don't mess with the right side of the colon. And then as we go down, you've got this container name, FreeScout DB backup. That's fine, just leave it as it is. DB host is FreeScout DB. Again, if you've changed that in the rest of the file, make sure it matches here. DB type is MariaDB, DB name FreeScout, and the DB user. So again, we're going to change this to what we made. So in my case, it was Brian. You change it to whatever user you made. And then again, we're just going to change this to the same password that we set before. So we're just going to highlight this password and then paste it in down here to make sure it matches. As we continue down, we've got this DB dump frequency. This is 1,440 seconds. I'm guessing that's something like 15 minutes. I don't know. I'd have to do the math real quick, but 1440 divided by 60, whatever that is, that's how often it's going to do a DB dump. The DB dump begins at midnight, I think, is 0000, and then DB cleanup time is 8640. So again, whatever that comes out to. So you can do the math there. And then the compression is bzip, so it's going to use bz for the compression. And then MD5 sums is true, so it'll check MD5 sums to make sure things are good. And then it's set to restart always. So we've got everything set. We had to make a few little changes just for security. So basically, your DB user, your DB password, DB user, DB password, the DB name we left alone, everything else we left alone really. We changed our time zone up here. If we go up a little bit further, again, DB user, DB password, root password for your database. Continuing up right here, we changed the time zone. And then again, admin and our admin password for getting into the system. We changed the URL just for testing. We're going to use our internal IP address, and then we'll set up our NGinX proxy manager to proxy the stuff over. But again, DB password, DB user, make sure these things are all set exactly the same all the way through the file. This is what's going to make everything function correctly. So once we've got all that, we're going to do Control-O to save. Just double check things one more time here. Make sure we don't have any mistakes. I think everything looks good. And we're going to do Control-X to exit, and we're back to our terminal. Now we can do docker-compose up. We're going to do -d and then ampersand docker-compose logs-f. Now, you could just do docker compose up and stop right there. And that would bring everything down, bring down the images, start the containers, and then give you output in the terminal so you can see what's happening and kind of know when to check what's going on. If you do it with -d, that means run it as a daemon. So once it's finished, it's going to show you done for all 3 images and containers. And then it's going to stop showing you anything in the terminal, but it's running in the background as a daemon, and then you can go and try to access your app. What I like to do is add this second command after the ampersands, and it says start it up as a daemon, but then show me the logs in the terminal so I can see what's going on. So I like to run it this way because then when I quit the logs with Control-C later, the app continues to run. If I need to stop the app, I can just do docker compose down to stop the app, or docker compose stop, depending on how you want to do it. So we're going to hit enter. Looks like I've already got them, so it says they already exist. And it gets everything started, and it's already running. So it's going to go out and it's going to do a few things. So you can kind of watch the logs as they're running. You can kind of see what he's doing here. So he goes and he does some database setup, sets up PHP, which is kind of running what's the code is running to make this thing work. Tells you that it's starting NGinX. Tells you that it's starting a few things that it says, please visit this address. Now we set a certain port, so this address isn't going to work. I may have to go back and set that port even in the URL, but let's just see how it goes. So we will hit, let's see, just go to our browser. And we'll jump over here. We're going to go to 192.168.10.112, and that was 8252 is the port that I set. Now if you left it as 80, don't put that port in. If you change the port to something else, use the one you set. So it started to go, but then it tried to switch us over to this. So I do need to go put in that port, or I need to use port 80 because it's trying to put a path on the end of the URL. So let me go set that port. So what we'll do, and this is a good thing to learn, so we're just going to go back to our command line here. I'm going to do Control-C, which stops the logs. I'm going to do docker. In fact, we can just do nano docker -compose.yaml. We can edit it while it's running. It's not going to hurt anything. It doesn't change anything in the running app until we do the other command, which is docker compose up-d again. So we're going to go down here until we find that URL. Oh, here it is right here. And we're going to put on the port number and see if that helps. Let's just do that. Control-O and then Control-X. And then we're going to do docker -compose up-d. All right, looks like it's done. We'll just give it a second to make sure that it actually gets everything running, because I didn't run the logs this time, so we don't know if it's ready, but it just took a few seconds while I go to get ready. Now yours may take longer because it has to pull down the images and everything, and it runs through some migration steps for the database, things like that, so be patient if it's doing that. We're going to switch back to the browser, and we will try this again. We'll just take out the login part. There we go. So now we've got FreeScout going. It's working with the port number that we expect, which is great. And we've got everything ready to go. Now we used my user, but we had a really long, strong password. So let's go grab that guy. So we'll just tab back over to the command line and we'll do cat docker compose.yaml, and we can just look for that admin password. So if we scroll back up just a little bit, you can see here's my admin user, and then here's the admin password that I created. So I can just copy that, Control-Shift-C, and then we can go right back to our browser and we can paste that in and we can log in. There we go. So we've got FreeScout up and running, but it's only running on our local network. What if we want to have this thing running out there on the actual internet? In that case, we need a reverse proxy. So we're going to jump into the reverse proxy and see how we get that set up. I use a reverse proxy called NGinX Proxy Manager. It runs inside of Docker, which is really great. And there's a lot of things you can do with it. So it's really NGinX. It's just got a nice UI to it that lets me set things up through a user interface rather than through the command line and through a bunch of config files. That's just my preferred way to work in this case. So when I log in, and if you go get it, I have a script. You can install Docker, Docker Compose, NGinX Proxy Manager, Portainer, a lot of things with it. It's a really fast, simple script to use. But I've got these proxy hosts, so you can see I've got a ton of hosts here, and I want to add a new host. So I click into my hosts, click on Add a New Proxy Host, and I want to create a subdomain for a domain that I already own. So I'm going to create freescout.routemehome.org. That's the domain that I own. I'm going to hit Tab so it becomes this little chip, and then I'm going to put in the IP address of my server, and I'm going to put in the port number that that's running on. I'm going to say WebSocket support, block common exploits, and publicly accessible. So we're just going to hit save. We've set up the basics. We're not going to do SSL yet. We're just going to hit save. We're going to go here to our entry for FreeScout, and we're going to click on Go. We're going to see if it comes up, and it does. But it changed it to this local address. So this is what I was afraid of. But now that we've got this set up, we can actually go back into our Docker Compose. So this is kind of the steps. You set this up, test it, go set up your NGinX proxy and make sure it works on your local network, but it's going to show you this local address. So now what we want to do is go back into our Docker Compose file. We're going to do nano docker compose.yaml. We're going to go back down to this line that has the URL. And we're going to change this to be that URL that we just gave it. So I'm going to say freescout.routemehome.org. This is probably our first change we have to make. We'll probably have to make one for the TLS here in just a minute. But let's just do Control O for save and then Control X for exit. And we'll do docker compose up-d. That just makes it take that change and start the system running again with that change. So give it just a second to say done. Wait about another 10-15 seconds. Shouldn't take very long. And we're going to close that tab. And we're going to go back over here and we'll click on our FreeScout domain again. Now if you look, we've got FreeScout. We've got the right domain. We should be able to log in. Let's try brian@fixitdelrio.com and we'll paste that password. I hope that's still in my clipboard. We'll find out. Yeah, it is. So now we're in FreeScout and we're using our URL. So we're doing pretty well. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to go back to NGinX Proxy Manager. We're going to find our FreeScout line. We're going to go to the right side, click on the three dots, click on Edit. We're going to go to our SSL tab right here. And we're going to say Request a new certificate. So if you click on this thing, it says None. Initially, it doesn't. In mine, it doesn't look like a drop down, but it is. Click on Request a new certificate. Click Force SSL, HTTP2 support, and accept the Let's Encrypt terms of service. And make sure you have your email in here. We're going to hit Save. What this does is it tells Let's Encrypt, hey, challenge this domain, freescout.routemehome.org in this case, and see if you can reach it on port 80. And if you can, issue me a certificate. Now, sometimes I get this thing where I get this red bar and there's no error message in it. I just click Save again and see if it'll go. If it can't get it, it should give you an error message, not just that red bar. There it goes. So once that window goes away on its own, that generally means you've got your Let's Encrypt certificate. And if you look right here at FreeScout, you see now it says Let's Encrypt in the background. So if we click it, let's see if it'll go, because my concern is that we haven't told it that we want it to use TLS. So we're going to click and open. And it's going to try to redirect us. Yeah, so it's not expecting TLS. So you get this really messed up looking stuff where it doesn't scale everything correctly. And this is just normal. So we're going to go back into our Docker Compose file. I think there's a couple of ways we can fix this. Let's try the easiest way first. So let's do nano docker compose. We're going to go right down to this line and we're going to change this from HTTP to HTTPS. We're just going to put an S right there. Going to do Control O to save and then enter, Control X to exit. And one more time we'll do docker compose up-d. We'll give it just a minute to restart the container and pull those new values in. And then we'll give it just another few seconds to get ready. And then we'll come back in here and we'll just click on our URL. And this time it tells us bad gateway. Maybe it wasn't ready. Sometimes it'll give you that if it's not quite ready. So let's just give it a second. There we go. When we refresh, now we're kind of back where we expect to be. And yeah, we're still logged in even. So we didn't even have to log in that time because it's still got our cookie set for freescout.routemehome.org, but now we're hitting it with HTTPS. So that's great. So as always, the first thing you want to do is click around and see what's going on. So first we've got our profile. So we can go in and set up our profile. I'm an administrator, but my first name isn't admin, so I'll go and change this. And I'm going to blow this up a little bit because it's even kind of small for me, but there we go. First name, last name, email address, alternate emails. If you have more than one email that you want to use, you could put that in. You could change your password if you want to. Job title. So we're going to put IT helper because I am not a pro. Phone number, you can always put that in if you want to. 555-555-5555, just like they say. Every phone number in California is 555-555-5555, right? So English is my language most of the time. I don't speak it super well, but there you go. And then UTC is not my time zone, so I do want to say, I'm not sure why you set the time zone in the Docker file, but I'm going to do Central Time US. 12-hour clock or 24-hour clock, completely up to you which one you set. 24 doesn't bother me at all. And then browse for any kind of picture if you have one. And then save the profile. So everything's saved successfully. That's great. I still see my information there. That makes me feel good. Permissions. So I'm set up as an administrator. I should have all of the permissions, I suppose. And then notifications. And then notify me by email through the browser, Android, iOS. So if you have an app and you set it up to get that, I guess you could get some application notifications. Yeah, so there's a FreeScout app in the Android and iOS store, and if you get that and connect it to your server, you should be able to get some kind of notifications through that app as well. So you've got some options there for different notifications. So you can see here that, you know, when there's a new conversation is assigned to me. So they call these things conversations, which is interesting. But you can set your notifications as a user and then new user. So you can create a new user as well as, you know, being an admin, you can do that. If we go back to our manage option up here at the top left, we've got settings, mailboxes, users, modules, translate, logs, and system. So let's click on system and kind of work our way up. So the first thing it's going to tell us is the app version. 1.8.21, August 28th, 2022 is the date and time. Time zone is America, Chicago. That's great. We're running HTTPS. Our web server is NGinX. There's the version. We're running PHP 8. And we've got PHP upload max file size is set to 2 gigs and 2 gigs. So we've got all these PHP extensions. So we can see a lot of information about what's going on in the system here, which is pretty great. Then you've got this Tools tab here. And you can clear the cache, you can migrate your DB, you can log out users, you can fetch emails, 3 days, those kind of things. And really this is meant to be worked with an email system. So let's look at the mailboxes set up. So we've got this thing that says new mailbox. It says create a mailbox. So customers email this address for help, e.g. support@domain.com. So let's call this free support@fixitdelrio.com. And this mailbox name is free support. We're going to click on create mailbox. Now the mailbox name is here, the email address is here. The aliases, we don't really have any aliases, but if you want to know what that's about, you can just hover this thing, you don't even have to click it. Auto BCC, so who else to include when things come into this mailbox. From name is mailbox name, so we can put username or custom name. Let's just call it mailbox name. So the status after replying is pending. Default assignee, it's automatically assigned to the person who replied if it's not assigned, or else it could be anyone, and then you can put the person replying. Basically, kind of up to you how you set that up. Email header, please reply above this line. If you want that, go for it, check it, otherwise uncheck it. Email signature. This has some kind of rich text controls for creating your email signature, but you can't see them on the screen. That's crazy. I'm not sure why. Insert a variable. So you can insert variables into your email signature. I mean, pretty cool that you can do that kind of stuff. And then once you're ready, you hit save. So here it says you need to set up receiving emails. So you got to go to connection settings and then fetching emails. So here we've got fetch from, and it needs to be this email address on my mail server. Status is inactive. It's IMAP. That's fine. We can put in the information. So once you go through and set everything up for your IMAP connection to whatever you're going to use, you'll get a message like this when you click on the check connection. So we've done that, which is great. So we've got this free support mailbox. We can kind of see all the settings right here. So first it's got the edit the mailbox. So you can see all of the information that we set up earlier. Again, you can set up a signature if you want to. You can tell them, make sure to reply below this line. There's really not a lot else there. We can hit save. Everything should be good. And then once you're ready, you can go to connection settings. And again, sending emails, you need to set that up as well. So in this case, I don't want to use PHP mail. I want to use SMTP. I have my own mail server. So my SMTP server, I want to set that up. So I'm going to do box.fixitdelrio.com. And then my port in this case is 587. And my username is going to be FreeScout at FreeScout, free support, wasn't it? FixitdelRio.com. And then my password, something nice and long and strong there. Encryption, in this case, my encryption is TLS. And free support at fixitdelrio.com, send test. So we can send a test to ourselves, I guess. and it tells you email passed. So if you get something that says it didn't pass, you feel like this is all correct, make sure you clicked on Save Settings first, because you do need to click on Save Settings and then send your test email. So the email went. We've got permissions as well. So selected users have access to this mailbox. So again, if you have multiple users, you'll want to go in and say, yes, they do, no, they don't, that kind of thing. So hide from the assigned list, edit mailbox, permission, auto reply. So you have all these things you can set for each one of them. And then basically your auto reply, so enable auto reply or not. So this is really a way for your team to communicate with your customers whenever you think about what this application does. So enabling auto reply, and you can set up this auto reply if you want to. Not something I think I would use initially, but as you get more busy, you might want to set up an auto reply to tell them, hey, we did receive the email. It may take us some time to get back to you. But once we've got manage done, you can go back over to mailbox. And we can see we don't have anything unassigned yet. So let's go and actually send an email over there. So I'm going to create a new email here, and I'm going to put it as freesupport@fixitdelrio.com. And we'll put in a subject of help with my desktop, can't find the Windows button. So we're going to hit send. Now we'll give this a minute. I don't know if it just auto refreshes or if it checks how it checks, when it checks, but we'll kind of give it a minute and then we'll refresh and see if it's there. We can actually go to the other browser window that I opened up to log into that email account the first time. So here's the FreeScout test email that they sent. There's the second one that I just sent. So we're not seeing those showing up here in the user interface yet, so let's just give it a minute. So this is interesting. While we're waiting for that other one to see if they'll come into our inbox there, we can set up one to send. Not sure why that field is so small, but you can drag it out if you want to, I guess. And then it says free support, and it's set as pending, assigned to me, and send. Let's see if it'll go. Please enter a message. Did I not enter a message? Okay, let's see what we do here. Okay, that one went. So there's a separate box apparently below the first box that you need to type into. That's interesting. Here it is right here in my email. So it came in pretty quick and it's really small, but we can zoom it up a bit here. And you can see it says exactly what I said, and it came from freesupport@fixitdelrio.com. So very simple. Now if I reply, let's see what happens, and hit send. So in theory, this is listening on that email box. There's unassigned one. So here's the one, help with my desktop, can't find the Windows button. So that took, 2 or 3 minutes to come in. Not bad. And we can see here that I'm trying to run. So this is working. It's a simple back and forth messaging system. Pretty easy, and we get some really interesting stuff here. So we've got some extra things here. We can do follow, forward, merge. We can merge this to another thread that's going on, which is pretty interesting. And then we can print as well if we want to. And then of course you've got your options up here of make a note. So this would probably be an internal note, I'm guessing. So this is an internal note not sent to the client. And then we can just do add note. So now I can see this thing, and then it's also under the mine because I own it at this point. So we can see there's a couple of things going on, and again I can just click on it and I can see some information. So this is just an internal note. This is not something that got sent to the client. They give it a different background color so that you know that. But you do have some really great options here for doing some different things. So this is an interesting little piece of work. And then of course you can reply back to the person to say, hey, we've resolved your problem. Tell them what the fix is, those kind of things. So really pretty useful for any kind of team stuff where you want to have a whole team able to access certain messages and reply back and do things. I think that's pretty cool. So FreeScout, yeah. This is an interesting piece of software, and again, they have modules that you can purchase and add the modules on to increase the functionality of the system. But really, even if you think of this as a very simple help desk ticketing system, somebody emails you, you get it, you see what they're asking for, you can monitor those things and make them yours, you can see the unassigned stuff. Really, it's mine, but it's unassigned. I'm not sure why that is, but if we go into it here, I guess I can assign it. Me. There we go. It goes out of the unassigned box. Now why it shows up 2 times, I don't know. Oh yeah, here we go. I've got 2 different ones. So I've got the one that I sent the message and they replied. So here's that one. Thank you for the fast response. So you can see there's none unassigned. These are assigned to me, but then you can have an entire team where you're assigning out tickets. They're handling things. It's all going back and forth through email, but really they just log into a web space. It's a shared inbox system. Really, that's it. It's really pretty cool. It makes it very simple, and once you set it up, it runs pretty smooth. So I think this is really great. This is FreeScout. It's a team email system. Pretty great, and gives you an opportunity to do a lot of back and forth with your customers and clients and really kind of get some information about what's going on. And again, if you look at those add-ons, I think those are pretty cool. They don't cost a ton. It supports the open source side of the software, and I think that's pretty great. So getting feedback from your clients, getting information about what your clients thought of the experience, I think that's all really good stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along the journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.